When things go wrong as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.
Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm your moderator, Omar Dunlap, and we have with us Sheikh Asim Al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And we have with us our wonderful studio audience. Assalamu alaikum. And today on Let's Talk, we're discussing the issue of giving Islam our absolute best, our best efforts, not leaving our leftovers for Islam, what we can just throw something. No, giving it our absolute best, whether in propagating it or in our worship ourselves and our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on. Because these days, many Muslims, we get so wrapped up in dunya, in making sure we have the best house and the most expensive car and the best degree, and so we felt that it was an important topic to discuss this issue. So, without going too much into it, I'm going to give the mic over here to Sheikh Asim and let him give us his reflection.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala abdihi wa rasulihi al-Amin. Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. It goes without saying that as Muslims, we have the most honorable task and mission any person could have. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran that there is no one better than who calls for Allah and performs or does righteous deeds and says, I am among the Muslims. I am a Muslim. So it's something to be proud of that you are a Muslim. And Allah tells us that it is the best thing and there's no one better than this person. Now, when I reflect on giving Islam our very best and our efforts, this gives me the idea that there are people who think that Islam is a separate entity and it's different than our lives. And I do beg to differ, because Islam is total submission to Allah Azza wa Jal. And I always give this example that Islam is like a frame, and our lives is like a photograph. The proper thing for a Muslim to do, if he is a practicing true Muslim, is to bring this frame, which is Islam, and place it over his life and cut the edges so that Islam would fit completely to your life and nothing goes out. What the majority of people are doing nowadays, they're doing this process, but instead of cutting the edges, they're trying to widen the angles of the frame a bit and maybe get a scotch tape and tape it here and put a couple of nails here. At the end of the day, you'll have a distorted Islam. And this is the majority of the people, what they're embracing is a distorted Islam. I see no difference between our lives and Islam. Allah the Almighty tells us that I have not created the heavens and the earth, I have not created the jinn and the human beings except to worship me. So this is the sole purpose of our creation. Yet one would argue and say, but there are millions and millions of people who are not worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. Yes, because they're not fulfilling Allah's will, and that's why they're going to be punished for that. But as a Muslim, I know that I'm created to worship Allah. But again, one would argue, does this mean I have to stay in the masjid for 24 hours? And I have to fast all day long? And I have to do this and I have to do that? No. And this is the focal point. There is no difference between our lives and Islam as practicing true Muslims. And that is why our whole program and schedule of the day should be manifesting, worshipping Allah. And how is that? Well, simple. If you look at the way that the Prophet lived, alayhi salatu wasalam, you would see that portrayed in front of you. All of his tasks, all of the things that he does, alayhi salatu wasalam, during the day and night are forms of worship. Even talking to someone, even when he plays with his wives, even when he races Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the mother of the believers. He raised her twice. Now if you come to one of us, those who claim to be students of knowledge or scholars, when was the last time you raced with your wife? You crazy? I race with my wife? I may wrestle with her, but race with her? No way. They think that this is degrading. Well, the Prophet did not think of it this way. When someone who is lower than us comes to talk to us, we may look down at them and say, listen, send someone who's older, someone who is richer, someone who is more with influence than you to come and talk to me. I don't talk to people like you. While the Prophet ﷺ, a young girl of 7 or 8 years old used to come and say, oh Prophet, I have a problem. And she used to take his hand, and the Prophet walks with her. She walks in the streets of Medina telling him her problems, and he would listen. So this is also another form of worship. This means that we have to utilize our time for the benefit of Islam. And by utilizing your time, this does not mean you have to limit your efforts and work only to da'wah, only to prayers, but you have to widen the spectrum a bit and to include that even your work at the office should be for the sake of Allah. What is your intention when you work 9 to 5? To get money. What for? I don't know. I need a bigger plasma screen in the house. I need a new set of stereo. I need a new car. I'd like to change the rims of my car, my car or my ride, and have it low rims and etc. I need to this, I need that. Well, you have a problem. But those who are practicing would say, I need the money so that I could put food on the table, so that my family, my kids would not need to beg. They'd have everything that's sufficient for them. I need money, so I personally would have something to pay for sadaqah, for charity. I need money so that I could secure some of the needs of my family and my loved ones and my relatives. I need the job because it gives me a chance to meet others, to call them to Islam. So this is one aspect, which is your job. If you go to your recreation, the same thing goes on. Why are you working out in the gym? To become stronger. Why do you want to become stronger? So that anyone who cuts in me while I'm driving, I can easily stop him and beat the hell out of him. Well, this is un-Islamic. Why do you want to get stronger? I don't know, I want to impress women. Again, this is no, wrong answer. Why do you want to be stronger? So that I can pray night prayer without being tired so quickly. So that I can fight in the cause of Allah whenever there's need to defend my country, whenever there's need to defend my wealth, whenever there's need to defend my honor. If someone wants to attack my family, I have to be there. And it gives me a good shape, and people would look at me and say, MashaAllah, Islam doesn't tell you to be weak and vulnerable and so on. But at the same time, it tells you not to be someone who is over the edge and beating people and so on. So, Islamically, a person should give all of his time, and this depends on the intention. all of his time, all of his effort, all of what he knows for the sake of Allah. Why? Because by this you would be fulfilling Allah's will in worshipping Him. But if you segregate, if you say, well, this is what's for Caesar and this is what's for me. This is, God forbid, Yani. What is for Allah? Allah wants me to pray 5 times a day, and the rest, I do everything else in my mind. This would not be giving Islam your very best.
Very good. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back, inshallah. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
Women around the Prophet. What do you know about women in Islam? Do you know the role that women played in Islamic history? Sheikh Ismail Rafai will relate the stories of the Prophet's wives in the program, Women Around the Prophet.
Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, the person he decided that this Quran should stay with and be left with was none other than our mother Hafsa bint al-Khattab. So this whole Quran was left with her. This is a great trust. Khadija bint Khuwaylid. She is afqah nisa'il ummah. She's the most knowledgeable of this ummah. Because she is my mother, your mother, and the mother of all the believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Women Around the Prophet in Ramadan on Hoda TV.
Bismillah, welcome back to Let's Talk. We have a very interesting show today. We're discussing giving Islam our absolute best efforts. In this segment, we're going to take a look at some questions we've asked some of our fellow Muslims. We asked them, do the Muslims that you know work harder at their jobs and in getting education and in these dunya things, or harder at being a good Muslim? And we also asked, what role do parents play in helping their children correctly prioritize between life and religion? So we're going to take a look at what they had to say.
Yes, I know someone, Muslim, who can work harder in their education, in their job, and as well as in their afterlife. So we, as a Muslim, should be equal in every aspect on life, in education, in our job, in our afterlife, our morality and akhlaq and all sort of things. We should be performance of excellent in all every aspect on our life.
In response to this question, when we look at our society today, you will see that the Muslims of these days are not as hardworking as those people in the olden days, those Muslims of the olden days. For instance, the field of science was introduced. We found out that the field of science was introduced by the Muslims of those days, like Ibn Sina and some others. So they introduced to us, they've tried a lot to introduce the theoretical and some of the practical aspect of science to us.
You see, this is a difficult question to ask because it is comprehensive. One has to look about this question in all Muslim societies in the world. But in general, I will say that Muslims are not performing up to expectation. They are not working hard as been expected compared to their counterparts in other religions. So we have to put more efforts, to achieve, development in our lives. It's not up to expectation. It's not satisfactory enough.
What do you think? What role could the parents play in the children's life, in their religion, and in being active Muslim in their life?
The role of Muslims in the life of a child cannot. The role of parents in the life of a child cannot be overemphasized. This is because parents are very important in the life of a child. They exemplify a quality that the child is going to emulate and is going to follow their steps. So in actualizing the aims and purpose of life, parents have to teach their children good tenets of Islam. They have to bring their children up in a way that Islam preferred for Muslims. So raising children in the light of Islam is the most desired procedure for human advancement in life.
Well, that was very interesting what we just saw. In reviewing it, I think another question has come to my mind that I think maybe we need to address. When we say, as is the topic of this episode, that Muslims should work harder at their religion and being good Muslims and spreading the correct message of Islam, are we saying that we should also put doing our best at work and at home and in school on the back burner, or are we not saying that?
Well, if we looked at the title of this segment, probably we would.
Yeah.
But the Prophet ﷺ gave us the answer to this question by saying that Allah the Almighty loves when some of you is doing a task that He perfects it. And this goes all over. So it goes with propagation of Islam, it goes with your performing forms of worship, and it goes with your daily job, with your studying in university or at school. It is a concept that all Muslims must perfect. That whenever you do something, do it in the best fashion possible. And that is why one of the brothers who was asked, he justified the early Muslims by saying that they gave all what they had to modernize the sciences and develop and improve what they had at the time. And this is the technology that we're enjoying nowadays is the result of their studies and their hard work. Yet, we have to be careful when we generalize and say that these scientists were Muslims, because some of them had corrupt ideology and they had only Islam by the name. Nevertheless, we have proper practicing Muslims who were scientists, who added a lot to science and technology without compromising their own religion. And this is the balance that we have to have. It is almost impossible to say that, what are you doing? You're doing more to Islam, or you're doing more to science, or your school, or your family, or, as I said in the very beginning, it is, you're putting everything in a blender, and at the end of the day, you are doing what Allah Azza wa Jal wants you to do, because you're a practicing Muslim, and your Islam tells you to perfect everything that you do.
So, to be clear, you would say that the message is nothing should be done half-heartedly, right? If we're going to do it, whether it's school or being Muslim, we should do both of them 100% to the best of our ability.
This is what Allah says in the Quran. Allah says in the Quran, prepare whatever you can of force to fight the enemies. Whatever you can. So in order to prepare this, you need to have rocket scientists, you have to have people who know technology, who know engineering, who know medicine, who know nanosciences and technologies, and everything, in all aspects. But this would not interfere with your worship of Allah, because this is part of your worship of Allah. But if someone comes and says, listen, I have to work in the lab, I can't pray a couple of prayers, so I'm going to skip it because I'm working for Allah. No, this goes beyond the red lines that we're not supposed to.
Well, what if someone isn't going that far? Let's say he's not missing his salah, but he gets so wrapped up in his work that maybe he isn't spending as much time with his family as he should. Or maybe he's not missing his salah, but he delays it to the last minute and he's not really focusing because he's thinking about what's going on in his school or his lab or something like that. Would you say that that's like a warning sign that he needs to sort of reprioritize?
Definitely. He has a problem with priorities, because there are no-nos. There are red lines that you should not cross at all. And among these things are your prayers. You cannot delay them or not pray them with congregation, because these are your priorities. Now, the family, you have to have someone to take care of them. If there's no one except you and you're focusing on something else, then you have a problem, because you are choosing something that is not the appropriate thing. And I give you an example in forms of worship. A lot of people may understand this. If you are in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and let's assume you are on the 27th of Ramadan, and the Imam is praying Taraweeh prayer or night prayer, which is the most preferred prayers to Allah at that time. And you, instead of praying with them, say to yourself, no, I'm going to make tawaf around the Kaaba and make umrah, and this is rewardable by Allah. It is rewardable by Allah, but at this particular moment, the best thing you can do is to pray with the congregation and supplicate to Allah. And you can delay this later on. So you have to prioritize in order to reach what Allah wants from you.
Very good. Okay, I think at this point we're going to go to our audience and see if they have any questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask that if you see a friend, for instance, at a university doing something wrong, for instance, talking to a girl, should you pull him to the side and say this is wrong, or should you leave it for later? Or
ask him for a double date?
Should you tell him at all?
Well, definitely it is not to pull him and put yourself in a situation that is not something to be praised for. What you should do is, whenever you see something that is wrong, you have to tell people, educate people, and you have to change this vice. As the Prophet said, ﷺ, whenever you see vice, munkar, you should change it with your hand if you have authority, with your tongue if you don't have authority but you can advise, and with your heart if you are helpless, and the only thing you can do is just, try to change it with your heart by moving out, by leaving the place. So if you see someone like this, you should advise him, but you should pick the right moment. If you advise him in front of his girlfriend, he's gonna feel insulted and he would like to prove his manhood in front of her. So probably he would say bad things to you and maybe curse Islam and maybe commit something that would make him an apostate. God forbid. So you should keep this in mind. Once you see him, you can write him an email, you can send him a letter, you can talk to him in the evening, and not straightforward, just give it like 5-6 minutes and then go into the subject. But this is the proper Muslim, who is not impersonating something he is not, but who is actually believing in changing the whole world to what pleases Allah within his capacity. So whenever I see something that is not in accordance to what Allah wants, I try my best, and my best has limitations. I try my best to change this, but I would not allow Satan to execute my heart. I would not allow myself to have a dead heart. Whenever I see bad things happening, I just look at them, give it a smile, and move away. I have to have this in myself to be able to give all of me for the sake of Islam and give Islam my best efforts.
I have to comment on something you said because it's so perfect to something I witnessed with my own eyes. You're saying, don't correct him in front of his girlfriend. He'll feel like he needs to say something, and maybe he'll say something against Islam just in anger. I saw this exact thing happen where I was with a Muslim friend of mine who's very outspoken, but he's a good Muslim, alhamdulillah. And we were walking in the street, and he saw a guy and a girl way closer than they should have been, and it was very obvious, they weren't married or anything. And my friend just told him, fear Allah, he said it very tough like that. And they got in this argument which ended with the guy with the girlfriend, the brother with the girlfriend. He said, okay, fine, I'm a kafir.
La ilaha illallah.
And he's not, but
Yeah.
he was angry. So I just think it's amazing that you told this, and I've seen this happen with my own eyes.
Believe me, it is the best way of calling people to Islam by just smiling at them. So many times those who do wrong know that they're doing wrong, but they don't need you to come and tell them because they wish that you're doing the same thing that they're doing. in so many cases, I drive by people, by young guys with their windows down in their cars, and they're putting M&M or 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever, and they're blowing their speakers out. I bet you they don't. Betting is haram. I challenge you that they know nothing of what these guys are saying. But they're just, cruising and doing this. And being who I am, I just simply drive next to them and say, Assalamu alaikum, with a very big smile. The first thing they do is they turn it off. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. And I say, may Allah forgive us all on the Day of Judgment and make us with the Prophet ﷺ. And they say, Jazakallah khair, may Allah do that for us. Thank you, Sheikh. I didn't do anything. I just gave a smile and a salam. And it had its effect. If everyone does this, people will change. Unfortunately, we're very passive. We're very negative. We don't want to contribute. And Satan comes and intimidates us with so many things. And at the end of the day, we end up putting ourselves in a shell and isolating ourselves from the others and claiming to be Allah's chosen people.
I know we've gotten a little off topic. Now we're talking about how to correct people. So maybe if you have a question more towards giving Islam our best effort, go ahead.
Okay. Bismillah. As a matter of fact, I'm an English instructor. So I try to use my English as much as I can to reveal the best image or the most favorite image of Islam. This is not because I'm an instructor. This is the place where I send an invitation to everybody, doctors, engineers, students, even the guys who spend their time surfing the internet on useless things or unnecessary things. Why don't you try to use the internet to create websites, to give the best image of Islam? Because, we are image of the Islam. So if foreigners or tourists here in Egypt or whatever, so was doing something wrong, as myself, I had a personal experience. I was riding a car with my friend. He is from the United States of America. We were drinking soft drinks. When I finished mine, I threw it out of the window of the car. He stopped the car and said, Ayman, get it again. And I get it and put it in a recycle bin. I was so embarrassed. But from this happened 2 years ago. Since then, I haven't done something like that and tried to tell my friends not to do something like that because we are images for Islam. How can we say that Allah says cleanliness is next to godliness and at the same time you don't do something like that? That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay. As for the hadith, it's not a hadith. So cleanliness is next to godliness.
A proverb.
It's a proverb. It is true. We have to do what we preach. It's not enough only to preach. And the best form of making da'wah is to actually be a practicing Muslim. Now, there are people who go the extra mile. Now, most of Muslims know what is halal and what is haram. But they find it difficult to go the extra mile in propagating because they are not themselves performing. So you cannot propagate something that you're not doing. So I believe that it is true that we have to give the role model to the people, but before we do that, we ourselves have to be practicing what we preach. And this American friend of yours, he told you to go and pick it up because this is what he believes. And regardless whether he's Muslim or not, but okay, he's not a Muslim. This is what he believes. Now, if you look at the other religions, you feel that they have more commitment to their religions than we do. And this is unfortunate because of their conviction and because of our weak belief in our beliefs. Though we have the ultimate truth is Islam. No Muslim would doubt this. But yet we fail to go and call people to Islam because we are ourselves lazy. We're not putting enough effort to this.
Very good. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back, inshallah, so don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
Our schools, what is missing? Join Dr. Mamdoor Muhammad in Our Schools, What is Missing? He will be discussing the most common mistakes made in our educational systems.
What type of teaching they teach him, what they say to him, what books they select for him to read, what things that he listens to, what games that he begins to play with.
How to perfect the work in the school.
Our goal is to improve our school.
And we'll see practical solutions from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger.
Most of the criteria for success for us had been designed for us by our Creator.
Our Schools, What is Missing? In Ramadan on Hoda TV.
Bismillah, welcome back to Let's Talk. Today we're discussing giving Islam our absolute best effort. Putting your best foot forward for this religion, whether we're talking about being a good example, or propagating the religion, or just living as a good Muslim, praying on time, and this sort of thing. Now, we have with us in our studio now, we have our guest for today, Brother Kareem Al-Aqil.
Yeah,
it's a very nice name.
Thank you.
And what I want to do now is, there was a question that we had asked earlier in the show to some Muslims. We had filmed it and we watched it, and we were saying, what role do parents play in helping their children have the correct priorities when it comes to Islam and life and so on? So I'm going to ask both of you, but I'm going to start with our new guest. Okay. How important is the role of parents in making good, strong Muslims?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Actually, I want to say that parents are playing the main role in this part to get this young Muslim to the top of being a real Muslim. Actually, we have to get back to how we learn, how we get up to be this real man in Islam. First of all, we'll learn from our parents. That's the first source of learning. Secondly, we learn from our society and from our family. Firstly, then our society. Then we go to the media. Okay? Then we go to this inner side. That's what inside you, about how you think about everything, about your paradigm, about how you look for everything, about your vision. That's the last thing that you learn from. So if you are talking about parents, that's the first source of your knowledge, to get your skill and to get your attitude, okay, in life. So actually, what I think about that parents must be this role model for their children, but we miss a lot long time ago. That's why I want to connect my words with what Sheikh said from a while, that it's about separation, that we learned how to separate between life and religion. And that's the real problem. When we heard about, long time ago, about in 17th or something like that, when we started to hear that, it's the problem not to get the new thoughts inside your mind. The problem is to get the old one out. We started to get out the old beliefs about Islam. And we started to make it business is business. And we started to look for this foreigner models in separating between religion and real life. But what we missed, that in these days they are trying to get back for this ethical model, for the real beliefs. That's what they are trying to do right now. Okay? So if you want to build on this, you have to connect between the parents' model and the new life, or the new idea that they are implementing right now. We proved that we were the right one when we said that people must have their beliefs. You must have a benchmark to manage on it. Okay. When we separated religion from real life, we missed the benchmark. We have nothing to know if we are right or not, or wrong. Because if you are going to talk about ideas or opinions, it will be such a fake. If anyone can say anything. Right? No one is right and no one is wrong. Okay?
Very well.
So you have to put this benchmark of religion to know where are you.
It
And
must
that's
be a higher authority. Sheikh Asim, I'm going to ask you the same thing, but I'm going to add something extra for you. What role do parents play in helping the children correctly prioritize, between, life and Islam and all this sort of thing? And the bonus question, are we doing our job as parents, those of us who are parents?
Well, I'll answer the bonus question. The answer is no. Unfortunately, if we were doing our jobs as we're supposed to be, we would not be in the situation we're in. We have a cultural gap, and the kids grow seeing their parents doing something and learning it at school and learning at the masjid that they should be doing something else. In Islam, there is no separation. Islam, work, entertainment, they all are put in a melting pot, and you get one substance that is one, not so many. If you go back to the Sunnah, you would find that the family used to make the children grow up thinking that Islam is their life and to serve only Islam. For example, Sulaym, may Allah be pleased with her, she's the mother of Anas. Anas was 10 years old when she brought him to the Prophet ﷺ when he first came to Medina, and she said, "O Prophet of Allah, Anas is a learned child. Let him be with you, serve you, and learn from you." The Prophet didn't need that, ﷺ, but he would not return this woman with a broken heart, so he accepted the boy. The boy lived with the Prophet ﷺ and his family for 10 years, stating that I've never seen the Prophet ﷺ reprimand me for something that I did by saying, "Why did you do this?" or for something I did not do, "Shouldn't you have done so and so?" He would not say this to him ﷺ. In one incident, Sulaym saw her child Anas walking the streets of Medina. The Prophet entrusted him with a secret, and he told him, "Do this thing, don't tell anyone about it." So he met his mother on the road, and she said, "Where are you going?" He said, "The Prophet asked me to do something." She said, "What did he ask you to do?" Now the boy is 10 years old. The first thing any 10 years old would do is to say the secret. And the first thing that comes into mind, if he doesn't, the mother's going to spank him. So Anas said, "I can't tell you, it's a secret." What did the mother do? The mother showed him the role model. She said, "Don't ever say the secret of the Prophet ﷺ to any soul." She didn't go on the offensive. She approved what he did. Now this shows you that it goes side by side. He is there to serve the Prophet ﷺ, and this is world. This is worldly things. But he's not there simply for the worldly things. He's there to learn religion. And by not separating, this is the result that we get. Anas ibn Malik, one of the great scholars of Islam. Likewise, this cascades all over. When I go to do some shopping and my child comes and says, "Oh, father, let me come with you." And I say, "Well, I'm going to take an injection at the hospital." And the child says, "Oops, okay, go, may Allah be with you." I'm not giving the role model, which means that whenever I'm going to talk about Islam, he's not going to pay any attention because I'm not practicing what I preach.
This is very interesting what you said, because I knew a sister that worked in an Islamic school, and she saw frequently how the parents were interacting with the children. And she told me one day, she said that it's so bizarre. She's an American. She said, convert to Islam. She said, it's so amazing to me that they will tell their children who's asking for some more like sweets there aren't any more sweets. Like, lie to them rather than tell them, no, you can't have it, and I'm the parent, and you don't need any more. And the child knows that the parent is lying because he just saw the sweets on the counter, but the parent isn't thinking about what sort of psychological aspect this will have on the child. So, I mean, is this a common phenomenon? Or
It is, unfortunately. Every one of us know, unfortunately, in the houses that we do not consider them to be practicing Muslims. That if someone calls by phone and the child answers and he says, okay, 1 minute, Father, it's so-and-so. And the father says, tell him I'm not here. And so, my father says you're not here. This is common because people are not practicing. It's not the culture. It's the absence of religion. And likewise, those who do not lie, for example, and this is one of the beautiful attributes in the West. Though they're Christians, though they're disbelievers to us, but they do not lie. And why is that? Is it because of their religion? No. This is how they're brought up. They would do anything. They would sin, they would drink, intoxicated, fornicate, but they don't lie. They would say the truth. Unfortunately, us Muslims, we're compelled by religion not to say a lie. The Prophet ﷺ saw a woman once telling her child, come, take this. Because, when we want to grab our children, we just pretend that we want to give them something. Now I got you. Well, the Prophet saw her and said, what do you want to give him? She opened her hand and said, a date, O Prophet of Allah. And there was a date. Said, by Allah, if there wasn't anything in your hand, it would have been recorded as a lie at Allah's side. Now imagine how many lies do we say, not to our children, to our bosses, to our subordinates, to our neighbors, at work, to the police. And it becomes like a habit, people lying to their wives. This shows you the split is there, and no one thinks of Islam as a priority. It's always at the back seat, if not in the trunk.
So I'm going to ask you now, taking what the Sheikh is saying, it seems like the pattern is that the children see the parents telling them things that aren't true in many cases, but then the parents are also telling them good things, like you need to pray, you need to worship Allah, the Quran, you should read it, But then when they get older, they realize or they remember all of these things that the parents used to tell them, and they see that there's truth and falsehood. Then they wonder why, when they turn 20 years old, they stop praying. The parents wonder, why would you stop praying? So do you have a comment for that?
Yeah, I think after a while, when the guy is not that baby anymore, he's not a child anymore, he has his youth life, he's old enough, he feels that he is mature enough to think about everything, he goes through two things. The first thing, that it's about his independency. He wants to think his way, and he looks for everything his parents told him as it's your opinion, I must have my opinion. Okay, and that's for the wrong role model too. Okay. Secondly, they try to go through this very hard fight with their desires. It's all about desire. Because they started to look for everything, and they want to feel that they are mature, they are old, they can do everything they want without any punishment from anyone. So they started to go out of the track. But after a while, when they face one of these problems that they miss their life, for example, they face an accident that they make them remember that there is Allah, they started to go back to their minds. Okay, but what we want to tell people, don't wait this. If you are waiting for this, it will be a disaster if you are going to wait for this. Okay, that's why we try to give people this knowledge, to give people that you have to have your own vision to know where you want to go. Because if you want to go to anywhere, so take any road. But if you want to go to the heaven, if you know well that you want to reach Allah, so you have to do what Allah ordered you. You have to obey for what God said.
So your job, you told me before the last break that you train people, right, in certain soft skills. So that's why I'm asking you about parenting and this sort of thing, because, for example, if you're training somebody and going with this common theme, you show him many incorrect things, you know, and then you show him something right. Is he going to take the right thing that you showed him?
Let me tell you, training is partially different from teaching. Teaching is giving you knowledge, a solid knowledge, and they are waiting you to implement this. But trainer, he is playing with the chalk style. I give you a lot of varieties, a lot of opinions, just because I want you to get your own opinion by yourself. But I try to talk about all the opinions and give you to think about it together. Let's think about it. Is it right to do this? What if you did this and you found this result? What if you did so and you found this result? They started to think. They started to think out of the box. When they think out of the box, they started to get that what I have to do from or what I have to get from this knowledge to implement it in life. Because everyone knows that for example, cigarettes is forbidden. Cigarettes are forbidden, right? It's not right. But we smoke cigarettes. Why? Because it's about desire. I want to do this. There's nothing to control me. Okay? People like to feel that I'm implementing my decision. This is the core meaning of the training. So what I'm doing as a trainer, that I try to connect between this and a high value in his life. All Muslims have this spiritual life. That's by nature. We have this spiritual life. So if you try to connect this skill with very high value in your life, and you focus on the result, and you put all your feelings in it, you will get the skill. And this skill will be, after a while, will be in your attitude. How we can define this attitude, or how we can get at this attitude? You will have the knowledge. After a while, after practicing it, you will have it as a skill. What's the difference between a skill and attitude? Skill, something that you do without, with your control. If I want to smoke a cigarette right now, I will do it. If I don't want, I will quit. But when you change it to an attitude, you do it without thinking. It's part of you. That's what we want. To make Islam is part of us. It's not a skill. To pray when you need God, and when you don't need God, or you don't have problem, you go away praying.
Right. Well, we have just maybe like 2 minutes, and I wanted to bring this specific topic up. What about what we call in America? I don't know if they have it in the Muslim world, but I think they do. We call them Ramadan Muslims. You know, in Ramadan we go to the masjid and pray, and we see these faces we've not seen our whole life. Where did they come from? You know, suddenly for the days of Eid, for example, the masjid is pouring out into the streets. These people that you've never seen them before. And I mean, we're talking about giving Islam our absolute best. What do you have to say about them, about that situation?
Unfortunately, we do have a lot of those seasonal worshippers. And we have to be a little bit careful, because we don't want them to abandon worshipping Allah for good. They said, okay, you don't want me to see me in Ramadan? I'm not going to come in Ramadan as well. No, we have to draw the line here. Now, most of the Muslims are worshipping Allah by tradition, not by belief. That's why lots of the reverts are stronger in belief and commitment to Islam than the actual born Muslims, unfortunately. For example, there are lots of Muslims who are women who are wearing the hijab, covering up from head to toe, but they're not doing it for the sake of Allah. And the evidence behind this, or that backs this up, is that the minute they get on a plane, traveling to the West, to England, to Europe, after 5 or 10 minutes of takeoff, they go to the restrooms and they come back, you know, what is this?
Yeah.
Old trousers and blouses and makeup. And you know for sure that these are not practicing Muslims. And they are closer to be sinful, if not hypocrites. In Islam, it's not this way at all. you'd find a Muslim in Mecca, the same attitude, as the brother said, the same behavior, the same commitment to Islam if he's in Siberia or in Alaska or in the US. It's the same thing. He would not, for example, compromise. We have a problem in compromising a lot of our beliefs because we do not have commitment, or we're not simply true believers. We're just, it's our fathers and forefathers' practice.
So I think you've managed to get to the heart of the problem then. When we're looking at Muslims not putting the best foot forward for Islam, it's because of this issue of compromise, and maybe we're just following a tradition and we're not really thinking about what we believe. Does that seem to be the consensus?
Most probably, yes.
Okay, very good. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll take some questions from our audience. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Let's Talk.
We need to strive to know the ruling of the Sharia on a particular incident. Why scholars had to put a lot of effort trying to figure out how to give the ruling on such topics and issues. Islam tells you to look good, to smell good. The reason of the recession was the collaboration between insurance companies and the banks. Some scholars, though, stated that it is permissible for you to insure because you're compelled to do this by the government, by law, but you're not allowed to benefit from the insurance policy.
Bismillah. Welcome back to today's episode of Let's Talk. We've been discussing the issue of giving Islam our absolute best efforts, whether it's in terms of practicing the religion ourselves or propagating it and making it known to others. We're going to turn to our studio audience now and see if they have any questions for our two guests. Go ahead, brother.
I'd like to ask the Sheikh a question. You, at the very beginning, said that every one of us in the society have a rule to give Islam his best. And you said also you should do this rule perfectly. The question is, how can we do this rule perfectly?
Did I say that?
You said it.
Okay. Okay. Well, you have to perfect whatever you do. And regardless of what you're doing, if you're a janitor, you have to clean the floor pretty well. And don't look down at janitors because it's an honest job. If you're a CEO of a company, you have to make sure that everything goes as scheduled and as clockwork. Perfect. Now, for us as Muslims, we as well have to perfect our tasks, whether it is forms of worship. So when you pray, you don't pray in a couple of minutes. Instead, you give the prayer its due. You have to pray on time. You don't pray at home. You pray in the masjid. When you pray, you don't wear the worst clothes you have. You put perfume. So you have to perfect your prayer. When you make da'wah, you have to propagate Islam in the best fashion. Because, as Brother Omar said, to that man who looked at the man and the woman and said, Fear Allah. Now, he gave a good advice, but was it the perfect advice? It wasn't, because it caused the man to backfire and commit a major sin, if not nullifying his Islam. So by saying that you have to perfect whatever you do, meaning you have to put your heart into it. Islam, if you give it some of you, it will give you nothing. If you give it all of you, it will give you something. Islam is not in need of us. You have to be very careful now. Islam doesn't need us. It's the religion of Allah. Whenever you look around you and you see that calamities befall upon our brothers in the Muslim world. They are oppressed, they are being executed, killed, their lands is being confiscated and taken unjustly from them. You think that, why is this happening? Well, it's not because we have to work for the sake of the people. We have to work for our sake. So Islam doesn't need us. Allah will have this religion prevailing over all. And this is mentioned in black and white in the Quran. You have to firmly believe this. But now, where is my role? Would I be part of this change, part of this effort, or would I be with the spectator just watching as nice show? No, Islam wants you to be part of it. Islam wants you to make the difference and to give everything within your capability to support this cause.
Very good. Do we have another question? Of course we do. Go ahead.
Every one of us wants to give Islam his best, but the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that our hearts got rusty, just like steel and iron. How can we get rid of these rusty hearts and refresh our faith?
Well, if you continue the hadith, the Prophet gave us the remedy. He said that the hearts rust. Then you have to remember Allah. So the Prophet is giving us the answer. So if you want to remove this rust, and if you'd like to revive your heart, you have to remember Allah Azza wa Jal. And remembering Allah is not simply saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allah Akbar by the tongue while your heart is singing a song. It has to go, heart and soul with this.
And this includes all types of dhikr. Would that include, for example, salah?
And reciting the Quran, and saying good deeds, giving advice. And what we're doing now, this is also dhikr. Because we're remembering Allah, and it's all for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So it's a wide perspective.
Very good. Go ahead.
Sheikh, I wanted to know the qualities of the ideal caller to Islam.
Of the ideal?
Caller or da'iyah to Islam.
Caller to Islam. Wow. Not me, definitely. Well, see, again, people differ. If you are a caller to Islam, does this mean that you have to have a bachelor degree? Does it mean you have to have a certain certificate in training? Does it mean you have to look in a certain way or dress in a certain way? No. A perfect caller to Islam is, one, a person who's practicing. I could have the best orator coming and talking eloquent words about Islam and the Muslims, but he's not practicing. He's not doing what he's preaching. So would he be a great caller? No. He would be a great radio station probably, but not a great caller to Islam. A person who calls others to Islam, he has to be practicing, he has to be knowledgeable, and he has to be sincere. So whatever he does, he doesn't do it for the money. He doesn't do it for the fame. He doesn't do it so that people would shake hands with and say, MashaAllah, you did a very good lecture, or I like your speech or programs. A great caller to Islam is the one who's sincere, knowledgeable, and at the same time, he looks at himself as a humble and humiliated servant of Allah.
Sheikh, you say that he should be knowledgeable. Okay, then any person, many persons are not knowledgeable. Then he can say that I'm not a knowledgeable person. So I haven't to call to Islam. There are many knowledgeable persons who can do or perform my role.
Do you recite an ayah of the Quran? Do you know by heart one ayah of the Quran?
Yes.
Or more?
More.
The Prophet said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Convey on my behalf even one ayah. So by conveying one ayah, you're a caller to Islam. Brother, you don't have to be one of the great scholars of Islam to be a da'i, to be a caller to Islam. If you teach the children how to recite Fatiha, chapter number 1, you're a caller to Islam. If you teach your old grandmother how to say the adhkar after the salah, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar 33 times, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu mulku wa hamdu wa ala kulli shay'in qadir, to finish the 100, you are a caller to Islam. If you invite your brothers or your friends at school to go and pray with you in the masjid, you're a caller to Islam. If you give someone a leaflet or a booklet or a cassette, all of these things are considered to be callers to Islam. You don't have to make a lecture or to interpret verses of the Quran or to give a commentary over hundreds of hadith to be a caller to Islam.
So it is a must upon each one of us to call to Islam.
Definitely. It is a must to call to Islam, all within our capability and reach.
Whatever your field is.
Yes.
Very good. Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode. I would like to thank our Sheikh, Asim, for being with us today. And I would like to thank you, Brother Kareem, as well. And, of course, thank our studio audience. But, like I said, that's all the time we've got for today's show. So we hope to see you next time, inshallah ta'ala. Until then, I'm Omar Dunlap wishing you peace. Assalamu alaikum.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but do not ever quit. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt. Success is a failure turned inside out. Let's talk and clear the clouds of doubt.